Yeah, we're live. It's not 7:09, and I'm back. I've been gone for a few days. What is it, the 8th? So I've been gone for a few days. Was down at Westech. Did a number of things actually. Right, did some dyno testing, which is good, and got to see some other cool stuff that they were running there. In fact, which is very cool because they're cleaning stuff out, and they finally took a dragster that they have there. If anybody's ever been to Westech, they have like a kind of an old school like comp eliminate or some kind of dragster there. There's had a big block sitting in it. It's been up on a shelf since. I mean, they just had to move it when they moved from one side of the building to the other side, but it's been there for decades. And the engine that was in it was a big block that they put together. I think it's a 468 or something. And they put that in, they dynoed it, right? Built the motor, dynoed it, put it in there, and then there it sat just forever. And so they finally took it back out and ran it on the dyno, and it did good. It made, high 600, 680, 690, something like that. For pretty good for factory iron heads. It's probably like 12.5 to 1. I didn't get all the specs on it. I think Brule said, I was talking to Brule on the way back when I was driving, and I thought that he said the cam was like mid to high 260s at 50 on the intake, and obviously bigger on the exhaust. It had a tunnel ram on it, probably at least 2 750s, but probably 2 950s on it. And so it did good, but it was cool to be there for that stuff. And I did some more LS testing because he was doing some spring evaluations and stuff. But one of the other things that I did while I went down there is, in fact, this is part of the reason that I went down there, is you guys know I'm building a tree fort. But in order to do that, the rails that I have that with the trolleys that go inside these rails, they needed to be mounted. And so I had to weld L angle on them. I don't have a welder here, so I went down to Westech and did lots and lots of welding. I even showed you a close-up picture of one of the welds. I naturally picked a good one. It's not my first rodeo. And what I found is the same thing that you find with painting and welding and all of these things, anything. It's basically all in the prep. This was just MIG welding. It wasn't TIG welding because I'm not a TIG welder. I don't call myself a MIG welder either. I mean, I could stick stuff together, and for this thing, it's just fine. There are obviously much better welders, and I don't get into the, welding competition thing where guys are like evaluating their things. I can stick stuff together and it's not going to break and it's going to be fine. And then getting it to look good is like the next step. But some of them came out well. And not surprisingly, what you find is that the ones where you go through and sand everything really nicely on all the edges that are going to be welded together as far up as it's going to go. And then you clean that. And then when you clamp it together so that they're all touching, you do all the stuff that has nothing to do with how you hold the gun and how you rock it back and forth and how much time you spend on each side while you're putting heat in it so that the thing, has a good bite on each side. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with like doing the prep work. And in a lot of cases, I just went in and started welding and with the kind of results that you might expect from that stuff, but also got to do a lot of cool stuff. And it's more difficult doing this kind of fabrication, not because the cutting or the welding or anything, but I took photos and I wrote down some drawings with measurements and things like that so that I could take that information with me. So when I'm cutting and welding rectangular tubing and square tubing and stuff and welding that stuff together, I got to kind of remember how all that's going to go. And is it going to work with the existing structure that I have? Because basically this new stuff has to support the elevator. So I'm building an elevator for it. So I had to build a basket, which is, if you've ever tried to weld 1-inch tubing together and make it all square and stuff, I didn't use, and they probably have them, but I didn't use them. I didn't use the little 90-degree magnets, which would have made life a lot easier. And they probably have those, but I didn't use them. I use instead, L angles and clamps and stuff, and that worked okay. Got it, fairly close. And I like doing that. I don't get a chance to weld a lot, and I like doing it. And it's like with anything, the first welds are not as good as the last welds. The last ones are really good. And again, if you prep, that's very, very important. Also, so I'm updating on that. I've been gone for a couple of days. Also, but while I've been gone, Jimmy has not been resting. He has the turbo Tahoe, and it's turboed again. So we went through the issue with the Tahoe where we went to do the cam swap. We were putting the truck plus camshaft in it. And then, during the camshaft swap, the bearing came out. And so Jimmy did a motor swap and then put the truck plus camshaft in there, and it picked up a bunch of power, picked up, 65, 70 horsepower, whatever at the tires, exactly kind of what it's supposed to do, given all the times that we've tested it on the engine dyno. It seems, it's following suit to what it did. And then, so he did a bunch of NA testing, and all that worked out, and got a tune going and all that stuff. And then now he has put the turbo back on it, because if it's going to be a turbo Tahoe, obviously it's got to have a turbo on it. So he put the smaller of the two. The previous testing that we'd done, and we test both of them, but we ended up testing with the G42 with the stock camshaft. But we also tested the GTX 3584 RS, like super responsive. You saw we did a live feed on that just the other day. We had a customer of ours that ran one of those, and he went 9s with it at 140 something miles an hour. So I can't remember the exact number. It was quite a bit. So he did good. Obviously in a fairly lightweight, drag race kind of car, which is what you'd expect. But Jimmy has the 3584 RS with a 0.82 or 83 housing on it, and he's doing a bunch of testing on that. The thing has already done 600 at the tire, so it's doing very, very well. We wanted to get it in the 6 club. We don't need to turn it all the way up. Still 4L60 trans, so that we're kind of worried about that. But a 4L80 is hopefully inbound. I want to talk to, probably going to reach out to Cameron, I think, about a 4L80, so that we could put in the Tahoe. And then we could take it out and, and drag race it. I don't know. It's really heavy, so I don't know how fast it's going to go. But it'll go faster with 600 horsepower than it will 300 horsepower. We know that that's the case. So he's testing the 3584. And I think tomorrow he's putting the 121 hot side on it, on housing on it. Because obviously, and I'm gonna be doing an interview with somebody, one of the podcasts, and we'll talk about this, but we'll talk about why camshafts increase back pressure and which ones do that. So that will be a good discussion. But when we go from the 8.2 or 8.3 housing to the 121, when we tested that on the stock camshaft, it obviously picked up power and dropped back pressure, which is, those two things should go together. Particularly when you're turning it up and trying to max it out, that's when you get the biggest kinds of gains for something like that. Particularly if you're hot side limited, which on that turbo with this kind of motor making this kind of NA power, that's definitely the case. So the hot side upgrade should make a fairly sizable change in power, which is what we're expecting. And then once we do the dyno testing with that, we'll run it at the various boost levels. And then, and because when they were doing testing, they did tuning with both a MAF and a MAP, so that we have both of those depending on which, how much a guy wants to make and what he wants to use and stuff. And then we have Jimmy has the blow off valve on there now. He has the intercooler setups working, all self-contained and everything. We're not doing testing with running the hose to it, which worked well and was convenient. But all that's going down. And then once we get done with driving it on the street, we'll show you some videos of the boost response and stuff, and that will be good stuff. And then Jimmy's going to put the G42 turbo on there, and then we'll see how much more power we make at a similar boost level. And then, like we did with the engine dyno, we'll compare the back pressure and the power output and all that stuff. So all good stuff. Again, still a little bit worried about the 4L60 trans with very, very high mileage. And so if we do, when we do change that, we'll just make runs at some given boost level, or maybe even do this NA, and we'll make because this would be a good test. I'd like to see this, and guys kind of want to know how much the 4L80 hertz power. So we'll run it, and the best way to do it would be to do this NA, so that we don't have variations in power, which you can have, particularly on a turbo motor, particularly on the chassis dyno. But on NA, we're not going to. You could pretty much be rock solid NA. So run an NA with the 4L60, and then obviously don't change the tune or anything, and put the 4L80 in, and then run it with the 4L80, and then see what the loss is going through the two different transmissions. You get an idea, is it 5 horsepower, is it 10 or 15, whatever it is, we'll be able to see that. And then we'll know kind of what to subtract, looking at future stuff. But after that, after we make that step, then we can continue on with the testing. And then, because the motor now has ring gap, it's got head bolts and it got ARP head bolts on it. So there's nothing stopping it from turning it up. Although we do think, and we might even get there when we put the G42 turbo on there, we might even get to the limit of our existing fuel system, which is just the 535, the Hellcat Plus pump that we sell, and the 1000cc injectors, and we're running E85. So we might be getting to the limit of that. We're contemplating putting a booster pump on the pump, or just putting a dual pump in there, and we'll see about that. In fact, that's going to be our poll for tonight. Okay, should we choose a dual pump assembly for the Turbo Tahoe over a boosted pump? Let me know. See what you guys got going on. Weld up a tree fort. That's what the welding was. That thing that you're seeing that's welded up in the thumbnail is actually a guide that a bolt goes through, and that's where the roller is for the cable. So the cable wraps around that, around the trolley wheel, the grooved trolley wheel, and then held on by a bolt. And as you can see, it was easy to get the spacing right, because you just sandwich another one of those 1-inch rectangular sections of tubing, and then you look like a hero. It looks like you did all your math and your measurements. LS7 lifters or Morel. I've never tested Morel, but we've always had good luck with the lifters that we sell. Do you have a number I can contact you? If you have a question, this is the best place to ask it. What's the kit update? We're still working on that. And there's no reason to pay for moments of my time. The problem is I can't get on the phone because it's never 5 minutes. Nobody talks about car stuff for 5 minutes. You're better off asking a question here. I have an hour. So you have an hour now, and you can ask all the questions that you want. Were you lost in the ether? No. VS Racing 7875 over my GT45. Okay. The 7875 will definitely make more power. I think there is a 96 and a 1.2 something for my 5.3. How much power are you trying to make? And then what kind of, how much are you spending on the 7875? Where have I been? I've been at Westech. Minnesota, you'll want to throttle back. The first 10 minutes or 12 minutes or whatever of every live feed is a discussion on something. And then after that, then we go to the question and answer. Lunchbox, what's going on? Bill, here's a cheat code for picking the right turbo. The airflow at peak torque should be in the peak efficiency zone of the compressor map. Yeah, I think when people are picking compressor maps, that they can't pick it at every boost level that they want. Guys that turn them up all the way are never in the compressor map. They're never in the maximum efficiency island. They might not even transition through that. LQ4, ported 243s, mild 216, 224, S475, 10 T4, S480, 96, 88 T4 worth the upgrade, chasing 800 wheel horsepower, 3 T56. An S480 is definitely going to make more power than an S475, but either one of those should get you 800 wheel horsepower if that's your goal. Got 3 tickets on my trail. They nailed you 3 times. You must have been out like riding wheelies and stuff. Picked up an 04 Ram 47. I'm trying to make 250 to 275 wheel horsepower just for a daily. I don't know if there are any things for that. It would surprise me if that thing, does it not make 250 wheel horsepower in stock form? But all the normal things would work for that. I just don't know what's available. If there's tuning available, obviously that's going to help. If there are exhausts available, that's obviously going to help. Maybe an air intake for that. That's definitely going to help. 114 LSA. Yeah, that's not going to change much. What's the crown thing mean? It means you're important. You misspelled your website name. Wire wheel on a 4.5-inch grinder is nice for prep. I have a cheap grinder for each abrasive, cutting disc, grinding disc, flopping disc, sanding disc. You should check out Yes Welder. Westech actually had, which was great, they had a Milwaukee sander with discs on it. And that worked fantastic. It's just that it wasn't that I didn't have the right tool. It's just I didn't use the right tool until I started using it. And then it worked very well. Which podcast? I think it's Street Alpha is the name of it. Or Alpha something. Richard, I'm running an older comp 275 cam and an LQ4. I'm wanting to swap a sloppy best cam that I have, similar to the Truck Plus, also ditching the 317s. Okay. That's going to be smaller than the cam that you have there, but 222. I think that it's an XR though, not an XER, right? Yeah, I would kind of be interested to see what those, because the other one's a 219, 225. So I don't know, there might be a little bit there on the 222 on the intake side. Cam increase flow, but back pressure is a function of the total flow. Both suffer from extra airflow. Yeah, the hot side is because it's making more power, it has more exhaust flow, and then therefore at any given boost pressure, it's going to have more back pressure. Read that the Chrysler 4.7 is really good, as long as you don't have to bore them. Scrolling. Going with milled 3799s, advanced induction, rebuilt in place of the stock 317s. That's going to help. Good combo despite giving up some intake duration. Should make more power being a modern grind. Yeah, I don't know about the modern and old grind. I don't know what I haven't looked at that load profile to see what's going on. You're not going to get much from there. What you'd get it from is the change in cam specs. I just don't know what going from a 222, 224 to a 219, 225 is going to do. The 219, 225 is also a tighter LSA. So I don't know. To me, that would be kind of a coin flip. The 799s are definitely going to help you over 317s. My 480. Whoops, my NA Humvee engine. I swapped to 480 and it has such a tall first gear and a bad overdrive. Which podcast are you going to be talking about camshafts and back pressure? I just did, so you don't have to wait. 406 is better off the line. Just from gearing then. I don't even know what a booster pump is. A booster pump is an electronic device that basically raises the voltage to the pump, because the amount of flow that a pump will support is a function of the voltage in and then the pressure out. Jesse, thank you very much. Did you have a question? 308 first gear is gold. A useful phone call will take a minimum of 1 hour. Yeah, I know. Jimmy and I talk, or whoever I talk to, Chad or Brian Tooley or any of the guys, it's a long time. eBay was $600 for a 7875. Okay, you should check out our G42 turbo. I'm gonna make 600 wheel horsepower. Yeah, the 600 wheel horsepower, a GT45 will do that. So you could, but the higher you turned it up, the better the other one's going to be. It's just the 4L60 is a fail-o-matic, yeah. Close to 235 of the crank. Okay. How much painting a junkyard motor is acceptable? Did you see some of the Big Bangs had stains in them? Picked up your fuel pump and 100-pound injectors, installed them in my truck today. Fit the 8.1 perfectly. Nice. That's excellent. So that now you can run do you have it on the boosted one, Amos? When are you supposed to be doing the podcast? I don't know what the exact date is yet. Considering slapping an LQ9 with a Liberty 225 head, Trailblazer SS on one of your cams, a stick shift crew cab, Could I get away with 93 at 6,000 pounds in tow with easy timing? Yeah, yes, you could. Well, it's a 64cc and an LQ9. What's that? I don't know what that's going to bring the static compression to. It's going to be fairly high. But on 93, probably yes. Heading down the road, but I got nothing to make me legal. I had a driver's license for 19 years now. So you don't even have a driver's license? They could throw you in jail for that. Thanks for all the help and the insight. Really got me. Finally got my engine dioed, making 440 wheel horsepower, 13 pounds. LM7 block. Minnesota, what's your question? Richard, this combo is in my daily. It's a balancing act. I want good power, but trying to keep it from snowballing. Wanted to do a 224, 232. I want to keep my 3000 stall. Yeah, and especially if you can err on a bigger cam, on the side of a bigger cam with a 3000 stall. Put it on the ProCharge one. Cool, Amos. That's great. I can't wait to see. Have you guys run that on the dyno yet? I built diesel turbos with 40 to 45 psi, and they're tickling the theoretical shaft speed limit of the turbo. Unless you go to Vail Pass at 10,000 feet. Yeah, that could be some overspeeding. 6-liter in my Hummer. Need some advice. Okay, well, just ask what your question is. That's why everybody's here and asking all these questions. That's why I do this. That's what it's all about. $330 emails. I haven't checked this. I'm inspired. Yeah, Steven, I don't know what your pulled at motor small block Chevy last time was. 10 plus years. Oh, the last time you pulled this, I don't really understand. Is it the last time you pulled a Chevy motor? No dyno yet, but I will be after duct tape drags. Are you taking it to duct tape drags? Because that's kind of awesome. I will, but we'll be after duct tape drags. Current setup is kind of soft below 4,000. I know it's the gears and tight converter tied to a 4,500 pound truck. I'm going to scroll back here, blue collar, and check out your stuff here. 799s will help that. Does advancing the installed camshaft angle increase overlap? No. You'd have to change the lobe separation angle. You're not doing that. You're just changing the camshaft relative to piston position. Looking for cam advice. I'm thinking about Chuck Norris. Well, tell me what you're trying to achieve with your motor. Is it a daily driver? Does it have a stock converter? Do you tell me some things that you're trying to achieve with the camshaft? And the Truck Norris is usually a really good choice. So, especially for a daily driver. You have springs. Okay. Yep. You're going to need springs with a cam. 207 was a gateway year. They really blended Gen 3 and Gen 4 parts. High volume oil pump. Might not be necessary on the pump because I don't know what your bearing clearances are. Do you have any better advice on a 6-liter natural aspirated combo over a Truck Norris cam? Again, there's not a better cam. There might be a better cam for what you are trying to achieve specifically. There's not a universal better one for a 6-liter That doesn't exist. If you want to, if like you might say, hey, look, I need the thing has to idle at 22 inches of vacuum. Well, that eliminates a lot of camshafts. Then we have to pick one between all the ones that idle at 22 inches of vacuum. If you say I want to work really well with a stock converter, that eliminates a lot of camshafts. If you say I only care about the peak power number, then that goes the other way. We got to pick a lot of camshafts. So you just tell me what you're trying to achieve, and usually 90% of that falls in the Truck Norris or my own low buck truck camshaft, which is going to be less expensive than that. But that's a really good choice for most daily drivers. Truck will be at duct tape drags. Taking the truck instead of my car. Nice. All cams are the best cams. Richard, I have a question. I have a roller block 331, AFR 185, solid Terminator. We'll be ditching 3/8 studs for 7/16 studs. Can you run 1/7 rockers? Do you gain much? Why are you changing the studs? And are you changing the studs? Are you changing the stud size that goes into the head? Because you're not re-drilling and or did you go with do your 3/8 studs have 3/8 on the part that the rocker slides on and then 7/16 at the base, and now you're going 7/16 and 7/16 on the top and bottom? You don't really need to do that with the combination that you're describing there, because I don't assume that you have a wild camshaft in there and 300 pounds of seat pressure kind of springs in there. I don't know that that's going to be an issue. The thing that I would be concerned with mostly actually is the 7/16 that goes down into the head, and it already has that. And as long as it has enough of a shoulder to stop it really from moving. And like I said, you're not going to get a lot of deflection there. And roller rockers will help on a Ford. The other direction instead of a stock ECU, I don't think that you even said what you were getting stock ECUs for. Is that question for me? We wanted to do tuning with them. Watched a cool video the other day where I fixed Auto Mechanics 7 something hooked up an adjustable timing light and put the light on a TBI. You could see the spray pattern better with different timing changes. Yeah, that is cool. We did that on the on my buddy Tom, who used to work at Westech. We did that. We put a strobe on when we were watching the spray pattern of the injectors down in the motorcycle, when we were standing next to it, running it on the chassis dyno and videoing it. But you could see it. You could see the valve and you could see the fuel swirling around and stuff because you're strobing it. And I think it was a timing light kind of thing. And so it was really cool what you could see. We could see down in there because motorcycle engines are so efficient. They got good line of sight down into the valve and stuff. It was interesting. Pulled the motor today solo. Last time I did that was 10 years ago. Okay, there we go. Still have all 10 digits. That's nice. It's a good cam for a GTO 5.7. Want a nice chop daily driver plan for a high stall and LSA blower down the road. Is it okay, so is this going to be a high stall converter? Maybe a BTR hot rod cam. Do you have a stock stall that you're running this cam in? If you do, then a Truck Plus or a low buck truck or the BTR Truck Norris, something like that. If you're going to put a converter in it, you know, you're going to have either a cam that's not going to work great with a stock converter, and then it'll be better when you put the converter in it, or you're going to have a cam that would work better with a stock converter and then not need a high stall converter later on. 2800 stall. Okay, so you have enough stall speed in it. And then what kind of power do you want to make, Minnesota? Let me set up, did 329, 355. Right now I have a 5.3 Gen 4 and my 78 pickup, thinking about swapping to a 6-liter. My computer and wiring harness just hook up directly to it. Yeah, your Gen 4 5.3 and your Gen 4 6.0 should use all the same sensors, as long as they both have the same trigger wheel. It's a truck. I want 500 horsepower and equal torque out of an NA. And this is a 6-liter. And do you want 500 wheel horsepower? Because you're not going to get that. You're not going to get 600, because that's 600 NA. I mean, if it's 500 flywheel or 500 wheel horsepower, that'd be 600 NA horsepower, and you're not going to get 600 foot-pounds. And you're not going to get 500 at the wheels foot-pounds out of a 6-liter. 7/16. I'd like to see 350 horsepower, 370 torque, and have a little better mid-range. Maybe I should find something between a 275 and a 224, 232. Split the difference. Blue collar. Does this thing have headers on it? Build a 408 stroker. Yeah, if you're going to do an NA thing and try to get 600, or 500 at wheel horsepower. If it's 500 flywheel, that's just a cam. That's not going to be that hard. I have a 388 small block, and it went from an 850 to a 950, and now it's stumbling. Do you think I should detune it, or should I just go back to the 850? I think it sounds like you need to tune it, because something's not right. The jetting, maybe a passage is clogged or something like that. Obviously, what is the power output of the 388? Does it need a 950? Love that guys are chasing a better ECM in most cases. A cheap micro squirt will make the same horsepower as good ones. It's easy to tune. At some point, I'll test one of mine to make sure it's fine. Need somebody to let me clone theirs and test it in their vehicle. And you can have a P59 for the cost of a shipping label. What do you know about the Parker funnel web? I've tested it many, many times, but the problem is that there are at least 2 different versions of that for a small block Ford. The original one that Parker did, and then Speedmaster got a hold of it, and I'm told that the later versions are not as good. But that manifold made good power, as long as you have hood clearance for it, because it's pretty tall. It's a 5.3 and 6-liter block, basically the same. They are the same. The only thing that's different is the bore size. That's the only thing that's different. Should we choose a dual pump assembly for the Turbo Tahoe over a boost pump? 85% saying yes. Should I stroke my 5.3 or keep it stock stroke? And how much should I bore it out to make good NA power and be reliable and not overheat? You can go out to basically a 5.7 from the 5.3. You can keep the stock stroke and go to 3.8, no, 3, let's call it 3.900 on the bore size. You can also combine that with a 4-inch stroke. You can make a 383 out of it. My truck has long tubes, free-flowing exhaust, 4L80 two-wheel drive, has all supporting mods, LQ4. It's an LQ4. Can't bore a 5.3 to 6.0. Guys have done it, but I just don't know what the attending wall thickness is, though. I don't know how thick the cylinder walls are after you do that. I mean, I've seen guys do it. I have a 4.8 block down at, I mean, it's the same thing. I have one of those blocks down at the machine shop to do that. And we're going to use a 4.8 crank in it just because, you know, de-strokers want to rev. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to make it into a 6-liter bore and only run it NA. So as long as the pistons don't explode or cause some other kind of problem, it will run at work. I just don't know for how long. So I just get a block and put my heads and everything on that block from my 5.3. Yes, your 5.3, a 4.8, a 5.3, a 6.0, all of that stuff really interchanges. The only thing you can't do is you can't put 6.2 or 6-liter rec port heads on the smaller motor. You put all that on a 6-liter, though. Yeah, your 6-liter has the same provisions for, you know, depending on whether it's a Gen 3 or a Gen 4 block, they both have to be the same. Same provisions for cam sensor, crank sensor, all that stuff. I have the Fairlane hood, giant hood bulge. It's vintage. Oh, there you go. That's a good manifold for that then. That one was better. The original Parker funnel web was better than the Victor Jr. the couple of times that I tested it on on some small block Fords. It's a good cam and headers to put on a stock 5.3 rebuild. Everyday driver pulling work trailer. Maximum weight 3,000. Do you want a smooth idle? Do you want a slightly, want more chop? Like, what else do you want? Do you want a stock converter? What else do you want, Jesse? Does the Tahoe have a 4L80? No, it does not. It has a 4L60 in it right now, a very high mileage one, which is why we're worried about kind of power this making. It's made over 600 at the wheels, at the tires. Richard, I have an LS1 RHP GTX 3584 Auto 3500 235 243 stock internals, reverse stock headers. Okay, 1000cc injectors. How do you think it'll go with a 35? It will be fine. I think that's way too much camshaft for what you're trying to do, because you could max that turbo out with, a stock cam almost, if you just kept turning it up. But I don't know what you're trying to achieve. Happy to help, Steven. So what would be different? Just a cylinder head gasket? It has a bigger bore. Yeah, the head gasket is different between a 6-liter and a 5.3. You can use the same gasket on both of them. You can't use some specific 5.3 gaskets, but you can use all 6-liter gaskets on a 5.3. Smoother acceleration, a little more power. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by smoother acceleration, but are you wanting to use a stock converter? If you are, then you need if you don't want to go into the motor, then like headers maybe and a tune would help. 4L60 or 4L65 will not hold. Just a matter of time. 4L70 is better, but the kind is 4L80 and modified to be fully roller internal. Yeah, we know that. We understand that, and it's getting a 4L80, but it just hasn't yet. When we want a dyno test. Australia, what's going on? Tough 91 small block Ford. Is that a 5-liter Mustang or is it a Holden or something? What are you thinking for my setup? Wider or narrow split on the cam? I see BTR has quite a few with wide splits. Thought about the 5.3 hot rod cam. A 5.3 hot rod cam would make more power than either our Truck Plus or the other cam that you have. The SUVs got 4L65s. I'm not sure why GM thought they needed a stronger trans than a work truck. Also, I have a 2000 Tahoe with a 5.3. Oil pressure is 45 at idle cold. When it starts to operate, temperature, oil pressure goes down to 20 psi. Can a high volume pump help with that? It probably can, but so can probably a new oil pickup tube O-ring. I'll try the 35. And the Truck Plus cam is impressive when you consider the horsepower per dollar. Oh, Joel, I will say that it is. Okay, I thought you said you were going to try it. Obviously, you've already done that. Yeah, the Joel, you guys are doing great things with the tune on that. Forgot to put the dipstick back on my catch can, and besides the loud air sound, made my stock cam sound like it had a cam. Was pretty cool. So it had a vacuum leak. When I forget to put the dipstick tube and the dipstick back in the LS blocks, and we start it and run it, the first time we try to roll into the throttle, it just sprays oil all over that side of the motor. What tune and headers for 2004 5.3 4-wheel drive short box? I don't know. Joel, you're going to have tunes for these, right? Pretty soon. I don't know about the headers though. I don't know who has long tube headers for that. Sweet, going to look for a bottom end 6-liter now. Our EB XR8 Falcons are our version of the 302 EFI Fox bikes. Okay, cool. What about the Hellcat transmission? Do they sell adapter kits now? Oh, they do sell them. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. We're interested in a 4L80, which would be what most people would put in. This 5.7 GTO, I want to do the high stall converter at the same time, 4L60, and now maybe swap to a 4L80 later. High stall and BTR hot rod cam, a good combo. Yes, and not a real high stall. I mean, with that BTR cam in a 5.7 GTO, you probably need a 25 or 2800 stall. Always can rely on you to be the voice of reason. I don't feel like the BTR would soften up the bottom end like some of the larger grinds out there. 8-speed trans. Yep, that's all good if that's what somebody wants. It has good cold oil pressure. Jump to 540 oil for more hot pressure. All right, Mark, man, we'll see you later. 5.3 gap rings, LS9 head gaskets, BTR stage 2 cam, GT45, 2985. What kind of numbers can I expect at 15 pounds? I don't know that it's going to support 15 pounds on that. But a GT45 is going to max out at about somewhere around 750 at the flywheel. So you're going to get to 650 at the tire or something like that. And it wouldn't matter. You could put almost any kind of camshaft in there and be the same because the turbo is going to determine what happens there. It only has 80,000 miles on it. I don't want to bust into it. But pep in the step is okay. All right. We picked up with Joel and Jimmy doing the tuning when our motor was stock, when Jimmy's Tahoe motor was stock, it made in the 230s, the mid 230s, I think. And then when it was tuned, I think it picked up 20. Which when I'm done with 4 different projects, I need to finish and build an LS to 6R80 trans. Yeah, it'd be cool to have all those speeds. I guess the low buck truck cam that I'm thinking about getting will also work if it's swap over a 6-liter. Yeah, the cam that doesn't care. 4.8, 5.3, 6.0, 6.2, 7.0. The camshaft will go in all of those. 2JZ 6R80 is holding over 1,000 horsepower at the tire. Nice. The low buck turbo cam. That's it. I think that those are out of stock right now. I think that they're on back order. Those are very, very popular. But I think we just got in. I don't know if Jimmy has them up yet. We should have tunes coming up, and then also wastegates. We're trying to add the stuff as we are able to test it, because that's important. Testing is important, and so is welding and tree forts. When I went down there and started welding, or asked if I could use some of this stuff, and I started bringing all this stuff in from Industrial Metal Supply, they were like, "What is all that?" I said, "Well, it's going to be something fairly cool. It's going to be an elevator." They're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, there's this tree fort, and because it has multiple stories, you have to have an elevator." They're like, "Wow, you're building an elevator for a tree fort?" I said, "Yeah." It's silly, but it's me. Finally ordered in my camshaft, 236 HR14. Okay, 5-liter, nice. Stroker motor, that's good. She'd help me see between 400 and 500 at the engine, probably 430 to 50. I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely, if you have the right other stuff, if you have good heads on it and a decent intake manifold, mid 4s is not a problem with that. And then more than that if you have good heads. For the guys that tow a lot, don't sleep on the Ripper cam. I agree. That's a good cam, and it's a really good choice for guys that want stock converter stuff and want a good idle. They want a milder idle. Still planning on more cams. 3 offer now seem to cover most of what people want. They do. I don't know about more LS cams. The only thing I would think about for LS cams maybe is something bigger. And we're working on stuff, but we'll see about that. We'll see how all that plays out. Stock computer goes to safe maps when you disable map sensors, so they lose some power until you add timing again. Yeah, they're doing the tunes with the map stuff because we are basically topping out with the turbo stuff. They're topping out the mass aerometer, so they went to map and then complete new tunes. Where do I get a tune? Well, you'll be able to get it at richardholdnerperformance.com here pretty quickly. What type of change would you expect the motor on a 4853 if you delete EGR purge valve canister and emission stuff? I have no idea. We don't do that. I heard the sloppy stage 2 cam system that Amazon is selling is not good, and the springs are also no good. I haven't tested which exact ones you're talking about, but if I was going to get that cam, I'd get it from Elgin or get it from Matt. Is that cam crazy choppy? Which one are you talking about, Chevy? Summit stage 4 cam. A stage 4 cam is pretty choppy. Are you selling sloppy cam kits? I'm not. Yeah, our Ripper cam has a milder idle. We got a 50 horsepower cam, a 60 horsepower cam, and a 70 horsepower cam. The Ripper is the 50 horsepower cam. Better idle than less chop than the low buck truck. Not quite as much peak power. My coworker bought one for his Avalanche, adding long tubes and a Trailblazer inline 6 torque converter at the same time and rebuilt 4060. I blue collar, I'd like to test that converter. I'd like to see, because I think that's I kind of would like to see what the stall speed is, and I'd like to see what the acceleration difference is. We'd like to do a converter test. I'm confused on what manifold I should go with. Kind of lost between the Victor Junior or the Super Victor. If you're choosing between those two, I would definitely do Super Victor and not Victor Junior. Powell machine check run lobes are soft and springs very inconsistent. Some of the problems I've had with some of the springs, some of the really inexpensive stuff that's come from offshore, is that one time in particular we tested springs and they measured okay. See if I can come back. Did it work? Yeah, it worked. I think I'm back. You guys let me know if you guys can see it. Let's see. Truck North NSR is hard to beat with the stock parts, the gains plus the sound. Did one on 2500 and a 6-liter. Does anyone know the stock? 0411 ECU can be used to tune the 480 trans. Joel, do you know if for Walt if the 0411 ECU can be used with a 4L80? Richard Messira had a mostly stock 5.3 and a 6E. I did the Trailblazer converter. I saw it flash to 2400 pretty consistently. Nice. That's a pretty big jump then. That's 300 or 400 RPM. So that should improve. Like, I'd like to do some draggy tests, I think, with that. I'd like to see, like, in the turbo Tahoe, but not in turbo form, in non-turbo form, in NA form. I'd like to do a converter change and see. Low buck turbo cam. I don't want a lot of chop, but also want a cam that's going to make the most out of the turbo. There's no such thing as that. You don't need to worry about that. You can take either, like for an LS, you can take either 3 of our cams, the Ripper Junior, that's the 50 horsepower cam, the low buck truck, that's a 60 horsepower cam, and the Truck Plus, that's a 70 horsepower cam. Any of those cams, if you team that with like our G42 turbo, they'll all make 1200 horsepower because the turbo decides that. The camshaft doesn't decide that. So if you want more power that's why I tell everybody, put a mild cam in your turbo combination. Put a mild cam in it that is going to add boost response because that's what you want. You want the turbo. The only thing better than a turbo that makes 1,000 horsepower is a turbo that comes up faster that makes 1,000 horsepower. So put a milder camshaft in it, get the turbo spooled up a little bit quicker, and then enjoy the boost more often. And then if you want 1,000 horsepower, you just turn the boost up, make 1,000 horsepower. I am back. That's right. I could see the working converter Hughes is my go-to for 35 years. What bolt-on part has the biggest power gain you've seen in all your testing of the engines, but not a turbo or supercharger? Nitrous, then it would definitely be some sort of power adder. Both of my trucks have a segment swap on the 411 PCM and 4L80 swapped into them. Pal's video was really good. He did a harness test on the push rods. The trainees kit was no good. What about the springs you're saying before you cut off? I can't remember what I was talking about. 411 can be used with any from a small block, LT, LS, up to Gen 4. T-bucket project has been dead since I had a stroke. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, John. Can't even get in and out of it anymore, even if it was legal for me to drive it. T-buckets can be a handful. Cold air, Cadillac, 93 tune, Trailblazer converter. My truck went 1460s on 17-inch street tires, 373 gears. Still had manifolds and cats, stock, intake, TC. 1460s is good. Doesn't matter where you mount your turbo. I have a 2000 Ford Ranger, 4.8, Gen 4 LS, 4L80. I plan to mount VS 7875 in the bed. No, that will work. The response rate won't be as great when you remote mount like that, but it'll still be good and it'll still make boost. And it'll be awesome because you'll be able to see it in the bed of your truck. The GT45, I'm already making 10 pounds of boost at 2,800. Okay. The GT45 is not very responsive, but on a bigger motor, it can be. Something with a converter on it, it can be. What tuning is it done with the 4L80, shift points and line pressure? Segment swaps exist. You can run an 80 on a 0411. Not all 411s are created equal, but that's usually a function of the OS. Operating system, something about problems you ran into. Oh, the cheap and overseas springs. That's what I was talking about. Okay, so we ran the springs. We tested the springs on the spring checker at Westech, put them in the motor and ran them, and then checked them again after they ran, and the pressure had gone down by 20 or 30 psi. So it was a lot. The springs just went away, even though they checked initially that they were good. My truck is 100% stock, ran 1560, so 1 full second gain from cold air, catback tune, and the converter. Okay. If you could pick any expensive car to LS swap, what would it be? I'm doing a Fox Body Mustang. I have a T-bucket. Sideways everywhere doing joyrides. They're just, I remember riding in one and I thought, yeah, this doesn't feel, I don't feel safe in this. Very light, lots of rear tire, almost no front tire. Are link bar lifters for LS is worth it? For what? What are you trying to do? Not for anything that, I mean, since we've run short travel non-link bar lifters to 8,000, and I've run stock junkyard lifters to 7,800. So I don't know why you'd need link bar stuff. Just if you're going to put something together with stock lifters or LS7 lifters, make sure that you put new lifter trays in with it. GTO hot rod cam and LSA blower? No, that's not an application for link bar lifters. What are the limitations on the Tahoe rear ends if you get C-clips to full lock axles? Can it hold 800 horsepower and 800 foot-pounds? I don't know. What rear end is in the Tahoe? Is it a 12 bolt? 10 pounds of boost okay at the low of an RPM? Is it okay for what? I believe the converter is worth 3/10. Could have been a little more with a sticky tire. Okay. That's kind of what I was thinking. I actually thought that a converter, especially something a higher stall speed than the that inline 6-cylinder one, like a 2500, might be worth as much as a cam is. In 0 to 60, it'd be worth more. North Star 4.6, might not exactly 10, but it spools up at pretty low RPM. Yeah, data logging it is usually better than trying to remember it or recall it or whatever. But and that's not even the point. The point is, do you like how it feels? Is that responsive enough for you? Then just keep it. Should be a GM 8.610 in the Tahoe. Okay. How much horsepower we need to race a Belgian Malinois? Those things are basically missiles with you. I love watching those videos. We have golden retrievers. You guys have met Brady and Bruno. They're nothing like Belgians. I love how athletic they are, and would love to have one, but I just don't know that that's ever going to happen. The 5.6 Coyote is built with the best Ford components available. Does 5.6 Coyote hang with a 5.5 Z06? I don't know that you can make it that big, right? So when I ordered a cam, just get GML 7 lifters and I'm good to go. Yeah, Vincent, go. We have lifters on sale right now at richardoldnerperformance.com. Get the LS7 lifters from our store, and you'll get the right ones. And like I said, I don't knock whatever the stuff is that comes out of the wrecking yard either, because the 5.3 that I have had about 200,000 miles on it. And then I now have more than 700 dyno pulls on this motor, and it's all the original short block. It's all the stock stuff. I took the pistons out because it turned out it has ring gap in it, and put it back together, and it's running and works great. And it's had lots of runs, the 7800, it's had nitrous, it's had blowers, it has turbos, it's had all kinds of stuff, and keeps ticking. It takes licking, keeps on ticking. Just afraid of it like blowing up or something. Oh, if you overspeed the turbo, yeah, it can do that. The store is richardholdnerperformance.com. LQ9, my Escalade has 260,000, does not burn oil. That's great. Sometimes they can develop leaks, like in the rear seal, or sometimes the front cover seal. Lots of places, the valve covers, the seals that they use, we reuse them a lot. They tend to last a long time, but they can develop oil though, oil leaks. Same guy over emails have been tuning it. Okay. On stock 462 valve, how much was stock crank? Handle 900 horsepower. I don't think you're gonna hurt the crank. And they have stock steel cranks if you want to put a 4V crank in there, that bolts right in. But I don't think you're gonna hurt the crank. I don't think that's where the problem is. The stock crank on an LS is cast, and it does 1500. So I don't think 900 is going to be a problem. I could go back and look and see how far I know that we've taken them to 700 or 750 at the flywheel. With that one was with a Vortec on it, so it probably was close to not close to 900. Certainly close to 800 though. Because there's definitely some driving the blower. I don't know if there's 100 at that flow level though. Probably not that much. But I wouldn't be worried about taking the stock crank there. I wouldn't be worried about taking the stock rods and pistons there as long as it had ring gap in it. I would try it and see. A couple of Hail Marys, cross your fingers, hold your breath, whatever. Maybe the chicken over in the air. L3 ASA cam, better cam choices out there for torque. I've never tested that cam, but I would say yes. And I don't know. You have to be more specific than torque. Do you want more peak torque? Do you want more average torque? Do you want more low speed torque? Are you willing to trade torque somewhere else? Because horsepower and torque are the same thing. They're just registered on the graph. So at any one point, you're going to get one, or you can get both of them. So are you willing to trade one for the other? It's crazy how much power you lose from exhaust leak and how slow open header is. Speaking of exhaust, X pipe or H pipe better, dual 3-inch, what's best, full or dump? That's a lot going on there. X pipe and H pipe, there might be a little bit of power there over just a regular dual exhaust. It's mostly for sound. And if you get a power gain, it's going to be in some RPM range. It's not going to be absolute. Dual 3 inches is enough to feed a lot of power. To get 1,000 horsepower through the wheel on a 4L80, what would the crank horsepower have to be? I don't know. I'd need more than that because it's not just the transmission that's taking up the power. It's the drive shaft, it's the rear end, it's the wheels and tires, it's a lot of stuff. Tired of wheel stands with the small block Chevy. I thought the big block and tunnel ram and the bucket could keep the nose down. It did. Yeah, if you put an iron big block in there, that should keep the nose down. You have the wrong cam. You need when we have I tested that. There's an epidemic of remote tuners with low moral fiber. Find a good shop and trailer. I appreciate all the data and testing you do. Helps us out a lot. I appreciate it. A Ranger with 4.8 is cool. I like Rangers. LS3 ASA, look for the flat torque curve across most of the RPM range, similar to a stroker. Did you ever do a big bang out of big block? Yes, long ago. We didn't finish it, though. I think we got up to 11 or 1,200. But I think it probably would take more than that. It's not listed as a big bang, big block because we haven't done that yet. But that's what I was trying to do when we were doing that testing. And that's kind of where we got to. We ended up making more torque than I wanted. So we wanted to try to make some changes that would get it to rev higher and make less power down low. My son bought an eBay stainless header for a small block Chevy. As we were fabricating the exhaust, we figured out that there were 2 holes in one of his headers. That's not good. Where were the holes? Were they in a flange weld or something? Was that on a Gen 6 454? It was, yeah. Yeah, we got 1 more minute. 81% saying yes. Do the dual pump. I will tell Jimmy accordingly. Yeah, the collector. Yeah, that's not uncommon. That's where you'd think that there would be a hole. If there was a hole just in the tube because the way that they bent it or because the wall thickness was not thick enough, that's not good. Was a big fan of the single-sided turbo you did. Thanks for doing that. But was that turbo a ball bearing turbo? It was not. And would a ball bearing turbo help a lot more than a bearing turbo? I don't think so. I don't know that you'd even be able to measure it. The consensus for bearing turbos versus journal, like ball bearing versus journal bearing turbos, is just longevity. And also, according to Robert at Force Performance, who does, I could say nothing but great things about, in the video that he did, he talked about basically dual ball bearing setup will live for a longer period of time during oil starvation. If you have momentary oil starvation, a journal bearing, you could smoke it right away. The ball bearing stuff will kind of keep going and spinning. You can't run it without oil indefinitely, but it will take more of that. But in terms of spool up, I don't think that the bearing thing does that, because on a journal bearing, once it has oil, it's frictionless. Hold them up to the light before you install them. Just hub dynoed my 496, made 419, 611 foot-pounds. Does that torque sound correct? That guy said it was impressive. It does not. Is that an automatic transmission? That sounds like a converter flash to me. What do you reckon the engine will make? 347 flat top. What are the big ported 185 heads? Which ones are those? Thanks for hearing my cam questions. I need to watch the cam metric video. Hydraulic roller setup. 611 foot-pounds of 3600. That sounds like a converter thing. Does it go way up and then starts falling down? That's converter. Yeah, turbo 400. Well, on your website for the L7 lifters, it says 485360. It fit my 5.7. Yeah, that's just not listed there. It fits all of the LS motors. Every stinking one of them. There. Man, working with the lumber for the tree fort was nice. When you're lifting, essentially two. I think they're 1x3 or 2x3 rectangular tubing. That's just heavy. Detroit Racing Products. I think that the trick flow headed 347 that we did, we had an RPM air gap on it, and I think it was 450 or 460 or something like that. What are you doing, Brady? Huh? What are you doing? Come here. Come here. What are you doing, huh? Hello. Huh? I got to go for a walk today. Huh? Yeah, it's good, huh? I got to see a big old deer, huh? A big old deer with a hurt leg standing in the middle of the road. I think he got hit or something, but he was jumping away. He just was kind of tripoding a little bit. Like you're doing good. One of mine passed. I'm sorry to hear, man. That's hard. Enlarged heart, fluid in her lungs, only 8.5, but that is young. Yeah, that's sad. These guys are doing good. We just took them for up a couple of hills. We just keep it, keep them healthy. They get so excited because dogs love that. They just want to spend time with their humans, and especially going out. And we saw 3 deer and squirrels and I don't know, 15 or 20 quail, and so it was just just good to be out with nature. And on that note, it is time to go, but I am back, and I will be back tomorrow.